and thanks everyone for joining what it is first of our Bucharest Marketo User Hub user group conference. So thank you again for joining. The purpose and the main topic of this call will be to cover the basics of API. So we'll structure the meeting into first going through a short, let's say, overview of Marketo user group, and especially for those of you joining for the first time, we're just going to cover some common sense ground rules, and then I'll hand it over to Mike to dive deeper into the very topic of today's call. So like you see here, we just need to cover something that it's essential for everyone taking part into Marketo user group sessions. We've got a set of rules: no self-promotion or pitching. We're all here to to learn, to share, and become better Marketo users. But what we're not here is for an impromptu sales speech. So if you're about to say, "Hey, I know a great tool that can solve this exact problem," and that tool just so happens to be yours, resist the urge. We'll all be grateful. Then there should be no unsolicited outreach. So networking is great and obviously is encouraged, but let's keep it consensual. So if someone shares their LinkedIn here, or that's fantastic. But if not, let's avoid any surprise emails. Respect shared use cases. Now, if someone shares a cool use case or something, or of an internal challenge, then this is for the group's ears only. Think of it like Vegas. What happens in the mug stays in the mug. So if you want to reference someone's example outside this session, then please always ask first. Like with every similar session, this one is also going to be recorded, and ultimately it will be shared onto and uploaded onto Adobe Users Group YouTube channel, to support further training, education, and future learning. However, if for any particular reason you do not wish to take part, in a live recorded session, you can catch the recording later once it's being posted. And for any questions that you may have, you can either reach out to Mike or send out an email to those two email addresses listed here, and one of us will get back to you. I know that at least some of the participants to this meeting have already registered and connected with the Bucharest Marketo user group chapter. However, if you haven't done it, and if you'd like to stay up to date with upcoming sessions and get in touch with us, you can use the details shared herein. For ease of use, you can scan the QR code, and you'll be directed to the landing page, allowing you to register and to become part of the Bucharest MUG membership. All right, now that we've got the rules down, let's have a quick look at what's coming up in the world of Adobe User Group and events. So for those of you who are looking to, either connect with the community beyond our Bucharest MUG, there's an overview here at some of the upcoming meetings across North America, and I think we're also sharing here international events, perhaps in the following slide. So if you're traveling or just want to join a different conversation, a different chapter, these are the sessions that in our opinion are a great way to expand your network and pick up new insights. Thank you. Mike, I think, we can move now to the Adobe Summit calendar slides. For those of you lucky enough to take part, or even if you're not taking part, let's say physically, if you're not participating physically at the Adobe Summit, which is just around the corner, there are some really exciting sessions lined up, and we've listed, I believe, pretty much all of them. I won't go into detail for everything that's listed here. You can catch a glimpse here, and then if you want to register for for a specific session, check the details later. If you want to deep dive into latest trends and strategies and Marketo innovations, these are the sessions that you can keep on your radar. Any questions from anyone in the audience regarding what I've just shared? Okay, if not, with that, we've covered the essentials, the ground rules, the key dates, and then where to be if you want, further Marketo goodness in your life. So let's get into today's topic, Marketo API. And Mike, I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And for those of you that might be a bit confused of why Christy is calling me Mike, there's a story behind it. But yeah, just to make it short, Mike is the equivalent of Mihai in English, and this is how close friends are addressing me when we're out for some beers. So um, just to cover that as well.
You said it.
Yep. Cool. So I will start with what is an API, and I already see some users that already know what that is. And as I kind of advertise it in my LinkedIn posts, I will not go into the technical details and explain what an application programming interface is, but I would instead use a cool analogy to explain it, and that would be like a waiter in a restaurant. So you can consider um, these set of actions as you ask for food in the restaurant, and that would be the request. The kitchen prepares it, that is the backend that processes the request, and the waiter is the one that delivers your food, and this is the response that you get. And this is exactly how the API communication circle goes around. So there's a user that sends a request. The API will transmit that request into the backend to be processed, and based on the data that you send and the uh, data processing that is in there, you'll get an API response. And how you should use it and why you should care as marketeers. So first of all, I think there are three main benefits. One would be the task automation to save time and resources. You can do advanced third-party integrations, but not only to that, I will refer to, let's say, the corner cases, because most tools that you may acquire and you want to integrate with Marketo or other tools will come with an out-of-the-box integration, which is pretty straightforward. But there are some cases where you will explore your creativity, and let's say you'll have some advanced Excel formulas which you'd like to transfer into Marketo. You can do that through API. And last but not least is to minimize the effort and focus on the strategic goals in order to streamline your marketing operations in the end. And now let's move. Yeah, go ahead, Konstantin. I saw a hand raised.
A mistake, sorry.
Okay, no problem. Um, cool. So in order to understand the Marketo API calls and with some real world fun example, again with those analogies that I've done with the reservations. First of all, in Marketo, there are two types of requests that you can do. One is the GET request, where you read the data that sits in Marketo, and the other one would be the POST, where you kind of write or request something to be built inside Marketo, like an email template, for example. The examples that we have in here, the GET request is to receive a list of leads. A POST request would be to add a new list or to change an existing lead field, for example. The documentation for all of the API requests sit on the Adobe developer portal. It used to be Marketo. It has changed in terms of look and feel. W- And what I initially thought when I saw the change, and for those of you who know how the Marketo developer portal looked like, this is a big change. It takes a while to get used to it, but after using it for a while, I just realized it's better documented, at least from the use cases of using like a user-friendly tool like Postman, which we'll get into it. So this is a screenshot of how the landing page looks like. You'll see on the left navigation pane all the assets that you can use API request for. So you can operate changes to the channels, email templates, files, folders, forms, landing pages, programs, and everything that is listed in here. And when you expand any of those assets, you'll see the type of requests that you can do. So if you want to do something interesting through API, if the endpoint is listed in here, you can do it. If it's not listed, then that's not something the API can do. But from experience, there are like 90% of the cases that you can do through API. The only thing that you will not find in API, and I can start with that for sure, is to do any updates on the smart list flows or smart lists inside Marketo. But like cloning, deleting, updating leads, historic data, everything is possible. Also, when you want to uh, interrogate the developer portal, there is a drop down here where you have API reference. So the ones that I screenshot in here are just for the assets, but you also have API references for leads, identity, and user management as well. So you'll navigate through that by just going into this API reference tab or button or whatever you want to call it. And then when you click on an endpoint, you get the details of what you need to call out that one. And right now, I don't need you to panic because we're going to decipher everything that is in here. I will reiterate that I'm no programmer. I don't have coding experience aside from what I can get from GPT, but we can decipher this together. And after you understand how it works, is not as difficult as it looks like. So in the right hand navigation pan, on the gray background, you'll see how the full request looks like. And this is what we are going to use in our examples. But first, how to get started in Marketo. Um, you will need to create an API role to grant the read-write access. So in here, these are the steps in order to create the role and the username. I would encourage you to give it a name that is quite representative for your instance, so you know that whenever something is modified by the user, it's easy to understand where it came from. So you'll create a role, an API role with read-write access for leads and assets. You can grant it full access if you are the only one using it. After that, create a Marketo user. When you do create a user, it's very important that you assign the API role to it, but also check the API only checkbox you'll see in here. After that, you click next and finalize it. And there's one more step you need to do is to navigate in admin at launch point, create a new service. You are free to name it as you'd like. In this case, for um, uh, example purposes, I just named it Marketo API. It's going to be a custom service. So there's a big drop down list in there, which you'll see some out of the box integrations and services that are available in Marketo. This is just a custom setup. So select custom in here, add a description. It can be more than the Marketo API, and then select the API only user that has been created in here. And then hit create and the new Launchpoint service will be created. You will then see a list with all of your Launchpoint services, and you'll see the one that you created with the view details. When you click on the view details, you'll get a window with the client ID and the client secret ID that are going to be needed when setting up the UX friendly interface you're going to use. And this is where I said, hello, Postman. This is the tool that I have used for a while. It's a free to use tool. There are other alternatives. You don't have to specifically use this one, but this is where I feel comfortable with. And I just wanted to share with you what I came across and a short definition guide across um, the workspaces, collections, and environments because it was a bit confusing to me when I started working with it. But a workspace is, as you can look at it, the blackboard where you're going to work. Then the collection will be the container of the requests you're going to build. And as you will see, all the requests that you'll put in Postman can be saved. And I encourage you to save because you will use it in the future for sure. And it's best to keep a record of the collections you are going to use. And last but not least, the environments. And the environments would be, in this case, the Marketo instance that you wish to connect with. And this is a screenshot of the environment and how you should set up your Marketo instance to connect with your Postman to connect with your Marketo instance. So there are four key variables you need to add in here. One is the base URL, which is fairly simple to identify. Is just having your Munchkin ID, which is usually in the URL of any Marketo instance. It's a set of 3 by 3 letters and words, something like 123-ABC-456. Copy that Munchkin ID you have in there, right? Replacing this guy here, mktors.com, and then add that slash. The client ID and client secret are the details that I told you you'll get in here from the view details. Add those in both initial value and current value. And the bearer token, it needs to be there and it needs to be left blank because the bearer token is a temporary token that refreshes every hour and it will be populated automatically in the authorization request. How to configure Postman and how to work with the Marketo documentation. Every time you run an API command, you must authorize to let a Marketo know there's a trustworthy user trying to communicate with it. So every authorization is valid for just 1 hour. And in order to create this authorization, this is a GET request. You can see in here it's /identity/OAuth and token. So instead of the local host 8080 that we have in here, we will replace it with our Marketo instance Munchkin ID .marketorest.com, and everything will be fine. Also in here, you'll see some required query parameters that you'll need to have from the Marketo instance, and these are the ones that we covered in the launch point. In order to avoid going back in Marketo, every time you wish to connect, you can use some variables in here that will guarantee you don't have to either recall or update the credentials every time you connect. And that would be adding the client ID, the variables that we defined in the environment. So in the upper right corner where it says sandbox, this is the environment details that we defined at the first step. So if you put those variables in here and the base URL in front of the token, you'll not have to remember those details again anymore. And then you can save this request, and every time you come back to Postman and try to authorize, you'll just click send, and the response, which you will see in here at the bottom of the Postman page, is going to give you the access token, which is going to be valid for 3,600 seconds, which is the equivalent of an hour. And yeah, these are seconds, and you'll see how it will drop if you do another send. Moving on, after we have authorized our user and let Marketo know that we are trusty for doing any updates in Marketo, we can then start doing some updates or damage, if you may. So I hope that will not be the case. I always encourage you to start without having to do any bulk updates, but just to test with one or two programs and then make sure it works as expected. And as soon as you do that, you can multiply it with hundreds or thousands of requests if you may. Cool. How a clone program looks like. So if you navigate in the API documentation, you'll reach the program assets, and you'll have this post REST API call, which you'll just need to copy what's after the 8080. So /rest/asset v1p program/id clone.json. So copy that, go in Postman and request a new, actually hit a new request. You'll get an HTTP version. Make sure in this case is going to be a post request. Start with the variable base URL and paste the the URL you just copied from the documentation. Now, there are 2 points that I wish to uh, make you aware of. One is the authorization tab. So when you click on the authorization tab in Postman in here, there is a big drop down list, which by default, I think it's going to be set to none, but you must select bearer token and update the token value with the bearer variable in between the curly brackets. The second one would be to navigate at the body tab, select this x-ww-form URL encoded stuff, and add the required parameters that are described in the documentation. So if I move back a little bit, you'll see that the request body schema is the exact same thing that I showed in Postman. And this is where the new documentation explains it better than the old one, what you need to select in there. And also you have 3 clone program requests that you should add. One is optional, the description, but the folder and the name of the program you wish to clone are required. So without those, you can't fulfill this request. So again, moving at the body, when we add the name, the folder, and the description, you must update the values manually. So the name would be the name of the program that you wish to clone. The folder, you have to remember this format. You'll need to provide a destination where the program will be cloned to. In this case, I want this program to be cloned into a folder. I need to provide the folder ID and the type, which is folder. So we have 2 types, either folder or program. You can clone a program in a program if you want. And if you want to do that, instead of type equals folder in here, it will be equals program. And then the description, this can be unchecked if you don't want to add any description. But in this case, I just said clone via REST API so I can easily identify it in Marketo. All right. So in order to do this end to end, you must get the program ID that you wish to clone, and then the folder ID where you want that to be cloned to. The program ID can be identified very easy in your Marketo instance in the URL after you click the program you wish to clone. And you'll see that what stands between the letter PG that comes from program and letter A1, and it can be A1, 2, 3, 5, 6, whatever. This is, so 5022 is the program ID that you want to clone. So you'll copy this value 5022, but in order to get the folder ID, this is something that you cannot take out of the box from the URL. You'll still need to use the API request, and there is a dedicated API request for that. It's called get folder by name. So in the documentation, you'll navigate to the folder requests, and you'll copy the details you get in there. You'll have to name the folder to be found in Marketo. So this is a folder that already exists in Marketo that I named cloned campaigns. And You define the type and the workspace. If you have multiple workspaces, you'll need to define the workspace as well. As soon as you hit send, you'll get a response which says response is true. It reconfirms the name of the folder that I just queried, when it was created, and also giving me the direct URL for that folder if I want to double check this is the correct folder where I wish to copy that program. So I can verify this. And if that is correct, under it, you'll see an ID, and this is the ID of the folder. So you copy this ID as well, go back in Postman, and do the following updates. First of all, you put the folder, you put the ID of the program inside the URL request. So again, this is the program that you wish to clone. And when you have, let's say, program templates that you want to clone for several events, let's say, or webinars that are going to happen, um, you'll get that template ID. You put it in the request URL in here, and also update in the body tab the ID of the folder where it needs to go. Then click send. I didn't capture the send button in here, but you click send and you'll get a response. If the response success is true, that's a yay reason. The program has been cloned and everything should be normal. If you get a success equals false in the error tab here, you'll get details of why that success is false. And I just added a tip to first inspect the authorization tab. And I must admit that in most of the cases when I have played with APIs, I always forgot to update the authorization tab with the bearer token. So just make sure your authorization tab is updated with the bearer token and try again. If that was the issue, that's great. If that wasn't the issue and you get a different error, you can search the error glossary that Marketo has. Just you don't need to have an URL for it. Just type in Google the error code that you get in here and add Marketo API. And usually through SEO, it's the first or the second result you'll get in there. And you can find exactly why the error came through. I see a question in chat. Is there a way to automate the get the access token so you don't have to manually call the API? Yes, there are ways to do that. The short answer would be through Python codes. However, I am not an expert on doing that, but if you have access to a great developer that can help you with that, you can set up your Python environment, and before doing any API requests, it will start with a call on the token side. I hope that covers your question, Katalin. And the bonus of the presentation is how can we use Postman to clone more than one program? And the answer is fairly simple. You can use a CSV file. It's very, very important that the name of the column you wish to add your program names. So in the CSV file, you'll just add all the program names you wish to clone. If they are in the same folder, that is great. You don't have to add a separate column with the different folder IDs where you wish to clone them. But when you just want to clone the same program in the same folder, you'll have only one column with the program names that are going to be added in there. In Postman, the only update you need to do is to make the program name as a variable with the same name that you have in the CSV file in between the curly brackets. Save it. And in order to run this, you'll have to go in your collection, and you'll see that at the top where the collection sits, there are three dots, which you need to press. And the third option would be to run collection. It's very, very important that there are going to be more than one request in that collection. And in my case, I think I have like 40 or 50 at the moment. It's very, very important to deselect them all and just select the one that you wish to run it. So in this case is the clone program that we have created. You also have to select the CSV file after you save it on your computer, select the file in here. The fourth step is to add a small delay, and this is 200 milliseconds to allow a little bit of time in between requests not to overlap and have an error. You can use 150 or 200 milliseconds. For extra safety, I recommend 200 milliseconds. And after you do that, the iterations, so the number of programs that are in here are 9, is automatically pre-populated. So you don't need to do anything else in here. Just run the testing workspace. You'll receive a big list of responses. And if all of those would be success true, then your result will be exactly as you see my result in here. And also after I have cloned this template into these format with 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 10, Marketo does not recognize 10 as being higher than 9. So in order to trick Marketo into doing that, and this is something of the naming convention stuff, is to start with 0, 1, 0, 2, 0, 3, and this way you will respect the order, because in this case, it does not interpret it as being 10. It starts with 1, and 1 is bigger than 2, 3, 4, and 5, and so on. But if you start with 0, 1, 0, 2, that way you'll have a better order. And that's another tip you have in this one. So there you go. You have just cloned 10 programs in this case, but it could have been uh, 100 or 1000 programs in less than a minute. And this is all when it comes to how to use Marketo API. The whole purpose here was to make sure that I empower you with how to read the documentation, how to start, how to set up your um, uh, Postman and Marketo instance to start using it. So I have a question here. Can you please elaborate more on where the access token is being referred dynamically and called in the API calls? So to cover your question, whenever you get this authorization here, this one is blurred, kind of erased. If you may, this access token is what grants you access in the Marketo instance. And in order to get it dynamically in the requests you're going to have, instead of copying and pasting this value in the authorization tab, so in here, when you go on the authorization tab, you select the auth type bearer, and you add it dynamically using this variable bearer token. This automatically takes the token that have been generating in the auth request and put it in the URLs that you're going to use for the next hour. When you refresh the authorization, uh, the bearer token is automatically updated and can be used in here. You don't have to do any updates, and you set this up only once. As soon as you save it, it is going to remain saved, and you don't have to worry about it. I hope that answers your question, Satish. And then I have a question from Colin. Can we add a token for the ID in the folder part of the clone program? Yeah, I think we can. Can you elaborate that a bit, Colin? I'm not sure I understand it.
Yeah. Hi, Mihai. So do you know if you said about cloning in bulk? If you just go to the clone program one
Yeah.
on, you've got so they got name, folder, description. So obviously we're looking for the folder to clone to. You mentioned if you want potentially
Yeah.
you could clone one. Say you're cloning your 10 programs in your CSV and you wanted to clone to different folders.
Right.
If you then added a column in the spreadsheet for folder, could you replace the 9629, I think it is?
Yeah.
Could you replace it with a token?
Yes, you can.
Cool.
So you'll add a different column. The name of the column would be folder ID.
Yeah.
You use the same one in here with the curly brackets, and it should clone it into the different programs. However, I've noticed in some cases, and even when I tried having some tests yesterday to get information for the screenshots in here, if that variable name, like the program name, if I wish to use the program name as a variable for different purposes, like cloning smart campaigns, it will not let me. So you need to define unique variables for the actions you wish to clone, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Cool. Are there any other questions in regards to the requests?
No, I've used this before with your help a little bit, as you know, but this has
Yep.
saved, if anyone goes ahead and does this, it can save you so much time. This is really helpful as well. Even today for me, and I know how to use this a little bit. Explaining the documentation, there's a bit that always confused me a bit. That actually is like a light bulb again for me today, so I can go and do some extra stuff.
Yep. Indeed. And my first impression of the migration of the developer portal, I hated it. But then I realized, okay, this information is a little bit better structured, even though I don't love the new format. But as soon as you get used to it, as with any other tool, web page, or what have you, it's making more sense. Cool. Any other question from the audience? Bearer token is not working in authorization for me. In authorization, you don't actually need to have a bearer token because the authorization request itself gets the bearer token. So everything aside from the authorization token needs to have the authorization in there. So for that, don't use authorization. Cool. I would like to get a little bit of a sense on how would you like the next sessions to be, whether you'd like to have some live sessions or still continue with virtual. I can tell you for sure that the next one will be virtual as well, but I'm just interested, and at least for the people that are from Romania, would you like to have a live session? And I would encourage you to respond in chat. And also, even though I think we just have one more Romanian folk left in here. But also, I would like to understand what are your current challenges and what topics are you interested in seeing in the next sessions? And feel free to email me afterwards. I'll be more than happy to respond to your questions or requests. Happy to support if you have a need of guidance on how to use Postman. As much as I would know how to cover everything, I don't know everything, and I have to admit, in most of the cases, I have used a lot of Marketo community and today GPT because that's also a blessing. And with crunching some of the JSON results, this is another step that I have used in GPT a lot. So yeah, looking forward to receiving any of the follow-up questions from anyone interested. My email address, as you could see in the previous slide, is very simple, mihai@revenuepulse.com or mihai.bejgu@gmail.com. You can reach me at any of those email addresses, and I'll be more than happy to answer. Cool. Thank you, Konstantin, for confirming. We will take a note of that and explore the logistic of having a live session for sure.
Thank you.
Cool. If there aren't any other questions, I think we can give some minutes back to everyone. Thank you all for joining today, and happy to kick this off. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, everyone, for joining today.
Bye.
Have a great one.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.